And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Saturday edition of the Paranormal Portal. I'm your host, Brent Thomas. Thanks for being here. Wow. Beautiful day here today. Hope everything was great in your world. It was nice and balmy, but not real sunny. But it's coming. We're getting closer, and the snow is pretty much gone, and life is good. I'm actually barefoot right now and loving it. No socks, no shoes, just barefoot and me. So I hope your weekend's been going good. We've had a really great weekend so far on the Paranormal Portal. Last night's show was just amazing. And if you haven't checked it out, please check out the archives and have a listen. We were joined by psychic Deb Varner, and she did such a great job, and it was just a pleasure to have her on. And I'm just so honored to have such great guests and so many people come on and be willing to be a part of the show. And it really means so much to me. And people take their time to come talk about whatever it is we're talking about that day, but I'm just really blessed and humbled, and thank you all for supporting it and being a part of it. If you're listening from iHeartRadio, thanks for being here as well. We're thrilled to be a part of the iHeart network and helping us grow this movement that is Truth Frequency Radio. So thank you all for listening. And if you don't know what the show is, the Paranormal Portal is our forum for all things paranormal, and it doesn't matter what it is: ghosts, goblins, ghouls, UFOs, little green men, big green men, swamp monsters, wraiths, whatever it is. We'll talk about it here on the Paranormal Portal. And if you want to be a part of the show, the call board is always open, and I really encourage people to get involved and to be a part of, sharing their opinion or experiences. It really makes the show a lot of fun, and to hear from you guys out there that are listening what you've seen, what you've heard, what you've been a part of. And it just adds to the quality of the experience, and we can all learn from each other as well. So please call in. The call-in number has changed, so please take note of this. It's now 213-233-3998. That's 213-233-3998. And so call, and I'll do my best to keep an eye on the call board to see, when and if you call in, and I'll do my best to get to your call as quickly as possible. So thanks again for being here. And also, we're on Facebook, so please stop by our Facebook page at Paranormal Portal Radio and give us a like, give us a follow, and post, anything you found interesting online or in your own experience. Love to hear from you there. I do take care of those accounts, so it is me. It's not some minion. I can't afford minions yet. I'm looking forward to affording minions someday, but not yet. It's still me. So I got that going for me. But also, we're on Twitter, and I'm doing okay. I'm working the learning curve there. So if you want to check us out on Twitter, follow us. Please follow us at Paranormal Portal, but Portal is spelled Portl, because Twitter didn't give me enough room for an A. So you got stuck with Portal. Paranormal Portal, not Portal. So we're out there if you want to be a part of the show. Also, if you would like to share your experiences, I love hearing from you guys. And if you just want to tell me what you think of the show, or have any suggestions, have some feedback, have experiences of your own to share, please email me. You can email me at paranormalportal4u, the number 4 letter U, at gmail.com. And I'll be happy to read your account on the air, and I can certainly keep your identity confidential if that's important to you. There's no reason that you need to be exposed, but share your experiences. I know that so many of us have experiences, and it really, I think, helps process the experience also to talk about it and share it and, put it out there. As some people feel like they're incredibly isolated and lonely with this, experience that they don't quite know how to process, and other people are just fine with it. Like me, I've had a lot of different experiences, and I've seen a lot of weird things in my life, and to me, I just feel real fortunate by it. But some people are completely unnerved, and it's hard for them to process. So I will be your sounding board. The doctor is in. for whatever that's worth. That's up to you to decide. I'm not really qualified for it, but I can't fix you, but I'd be happy to talk about you. So please use those methods of contact. And also, if you're listening to the show, you want to be a part of the Paranormal Portal or TFR, Truth Frequency Radio community, stop by truthfrequencyradio.com and then type slash chat, and you'll be brought to the Truth Frequency chat room. And there's a lot of amazing people in there and great conversations all the time. So we're looking forward to seeing you and hearing from you, and just glad that you're here and being a part of the experience. So thanks. I appreciate it personally. Someday I'll get t-shirts made and send them out or whatever, but for now, you just get my gracious thanks. So we are tonight going to go through back into the world of UFOs and aliens and all the weird happenings involved in that. And tonight is a pretty specific topic, and it's kind of going through the antiquity of the history that we know about. And I don't mean way back into the ancient times and the Sumerians and Egyptians and such, but I'm talking more of our last century. And we're going to look into the Eisenhower Accords, the secret Eisenhower Accords, and we're going to talk about that. And we are joined tonight by our special guest, Don Longbeard, who is here in the studio with me, and he's going to also verify another story I told you a little while ago, and I'll let him share his experience, and you will know that I speak the truth. That's all I got to say. So, Don, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here, brother.
Hey, thanks, Brent, and thanks for everybody listening. A couple weeks ago, I wanted to verify his story. A couple weeks ago, we were coming back from seeing Cindy Goodbreak. We went to a Bigfoot gathering. No pun intended. But we were on our way home. It was probably about 5:30 at night coming home. And Brent looks up and he says, "Hey, is that a rainbow?" I look up. Yeah, that's a rainbow. He says, "Does it end right there on the road right in front of us?" I said, "Yeah, it looks like we're going to drive right through it." And sure enough, you're not supposed to be able to get to the end of a rainbow because, the prismatic effect of the rain and the atmospheric and things like that. And as you move towards light, it moves away from you, or so it seems. But I tell you what, we drove right through the end of that rainbow. I was just wondering where my lucky pot of gold was. That's when Brent told me, oh, they do it all by direct deposit now. So I got home and checked my account. And guess what? Nah, I didn't win that lottery. Anyhow, but it is true. And it was actually kind of really cool, being able to, find something that you're not supposed to be able to do and then being able to do it, which just feeds right into, some of the things that Brent just talks about. It's, he talks about the paranormal, and things that aren't supposed to happen that may happen or that people experience. And that's what it is. That's what that was. That was a rainbow experience, and something that we were able to do that nobody else apparently can't do. So there you go.
And it is funny though, because I don't know if you saw this, Don, but after that, when I came home and shared the experience on the show, there was a person in the chat room who said, "Oh, I know, that's cool when that happens." So it actually does happen, and I don't know how rare it is, but I mean, it's got to be phenomenally rare. I don't know what the gift was and all of that, but it was just like you said, it was neat to have an experience that's not supposed to happen. And I've had a lot of those in my life, and like I said, I feel real blessed, and I think it just makes you just re-examine things. And sometimes they're just nice reminders that, you know what, everything's not as mundane as we think. It's the world is bigger. So I love it. So anyway, tonight we're going to get into the story of the Eisenhower Accords with meeting with extraterrestrials, and this is a topic that I don't claim to know a lot about. I've heard reference of it. I've heard talks on it, but I'm going to turn it over to you and let you kind of set the stage for what happened and what you know about it.
Right. Well, okay, let's go ahead and start into that then. I specifically wanted to talk about Eisenhower and what his interactions with ETs or extraterrestrials or grays, whatever you want to call them. There's a couple that lots of people refer to. However, I'm not going to go into that either. However, what I want to do, though, is I do want to talk about just briefly about Ike himself. Everybody back in the late 40s, when he was going up against, I can't remember. It was after Truman left and he took the presidential nomination for the Republican Party. And part of what really propelled him, I think, was his success. he's had major successes. He had major successes in 1942, 1943. He was the commander. He was supreme commander of the Allied forces in North Africa, and then on D-Day, he was the supreme commander for the invasion of the German-held France, 1944-45. He was also president of Columbia University. He left that in 1951 to become the supreme commander, the first supreme commander of the NATO forces around the world. And then 1953 through 1961, of course, he was our president. So he was a real staunch, real reacher. He reached for what he wanted, and he grabbed it, and he took a hold of it, and he made it his. And he had sweeping victories for all Allied forces and all the way through his presidency. Now, there was some controversy near the end of his presidency about a few things, but we won't go through that either because it's not related, or at least not in this vein. And then, of course, he was, another thing, he was born in 1890. Can you think about anybody or anybody, 1890? He died in 1969. As a matter of fact, he died 3 days ago. As of 3 days ago, 48 years almost to the day. So kind of crazy to think about that, because that means he died the year before I was born. So there you have that. So we're talking about a president who really, really had some real victories and real successes in his life. And, so when we talk about Eisenhower and aliens, it seems disjointed. Because all of these terrestrial things he's done, and then we get he's the first president that has been allegedly connected to alien meetings. So that's where I want to go with this talk tonight.
Now, this is kind of considered clearly there were accounts of UFO phenomenon going through history, and including American history, and with reports, and a lot of people like to say that Roswell was really what broke the bubble, and that's clearly not true, because there's reports from the 1800s of people seeing flying discs and stuff, and in fact, to my knowledge, I think it was Jefferson did the first official UFO report, and that he saw what appeared to be a house-sized craft flying through the air, and that is on record, and it's clearly a fact. But so I think that a lot of people think, this is kind of where it started, but it really didn't. They were around quite a while before that, or at least the reports of that was around since pretty much into the establishment of the country. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because, has anybody seen the movie Cowboys and Aliens? All right. Well, supposedly that was, 1890s, right about the time Eisenhower was born. And, it was happening in Texas, Aurora, Texas, I think it was. And an alien craft had supposedly crashed into a silo of a farmer. Now, there's a lot of stories, that say, that's just bunk. There's no proof. Well, be that as it may, it doesn't really matter, because people are going to believe what they want to believe. Now, like you said, there are reports of UFOs supposedly in the Bible. So if you want to go that far back, plus, of course, we've got all of our ancient alien friends and things like that. The Sumerians, as you mentioned, the Anunnaki, and all those, people or beings that have supposedly visited the Earth. But there have been several presidents that have been pointed. There have been UFOs happenings around them. However, Eisenhower was the first one that supposedly had been in contact, actual physical contact with them. There were some reports during FDR's time, and of course Truman was around when Roswell happened, and then Eisenhower took over from there. So, but Truman was quoted as saying, every time he was asked about aliens and UFOs, he said, "I've never seen a purple cow, and I hope I never do." and so, I mean, such a simple, staunch statement is just simply telling you, I have got nothing to say about it because I don't want to get into it. And it makes it easier to have, instead of trying to remember your lies, it's just a straight statement. I've never seen a purple cow. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But Eisenhower supposedly is the first one in 1954. So the story starts apparently after coming back from a quail hunting in Georgia, early February-ish, the 7th, right around there. About a week after that, he got a call and he had to go to Holloman Air Force Base, actually Edwards. Let's say Edwards, because I believe he moved from Edwards and went to Holloman to meet with others. So the story starts February 20th, 21st, 1954. Supposedly, he takes another vacation to go golfing in beautiful Palm Springs. So they fly him out there. And they shut down the runways and everything. They land the plane. They shut down the runways. This is supposedly in the early morning of the 20th, right in there, 21st of February, 54. And then he goes on to a ship. What actually says is that Air Force One, which wasn't Air Force One then, he called it the Columbine 3, which was Eisenhower's name for the constellation that they used as Air Force One at the time. So if I say Air Force One, I mean that constellation, the Columbine 3. Just a little background information on that. So he exits his Connie, or somebody who resembles the president exits the Connie. He walks about 45, 50 feet to the ramp of what was described as a double convex craft. And he walked up the ramp, shook hands with a being at the top of the ramp, and then disappeared into the purposes, let's say, the spaceship. And 45 minutes later, supposedly he comes back out and gets back on his plane and flies away. And so Holloman Air Force Base was shut down for that entire day. There's lots of eyewitness reports, or at least secondhand reports, because I keep bumping into one name, Kirkland, and he tells a story about how it was shut down. But there's a few different problems there. One is he was at Holloman in 55. So that's another part of the story that I'll come up with later. However, supposedly for this 45 minutes, he was meeting with these aliens. These are aliens that resembled us. Literally, they were humanoids, and they looked like humans. And this is one of the ones that he did meet with was supposedly named Valiant Thor. Valiant Thor also brought Jill Thor and Don Thor. Don was Valiant's brother, and Jill was his wife, Valiant's wife. So there's that first contact. Now, apparently over the course of a couple days, he met with another set of aliens. We're going to call them the Greys for lack of a better term, because the Greys are kind of a multiracial race of beings, kind of like, I don't know. It's just that the descriptions of those are, they're tall, they're short, they're green, they're a light green, they're a mottled green. They could be up to 9 foot tall. Different stories. It kind of just blows me away. Try to look up Eisenhower and the 4 races he met with, and you're not going to find much information. They're going to say the Nordics, they're going to say the Greys, they're going to say the reptilians, and whether they come from, Zeta Reticula or they come from Betelgeuse, it doesn't matter. They're all aliens. But so that's the general setup to the story, is that in 1954 he met with aliens. Now, apparently, there's a gentleman out there, Frank Stranges. supposedly had met with Valiant Thor on, well, Valiant Thor's craft was Victory 1. There was also a Victory 2 that was supposedly in orbit or something to that effect. There's no real description of what happened with Victory 2. But there's a lot of information. Part of what brought around these aliens is, let me go back to my notes here, because it talks about what I'm referencing is Michael Salla. He's the founder of exopolitics.org. It's research paper number 8 that he wrote on February 12th, 2004, is a lot of the information I have, because I found that it condenses it all down into one thing. Everything I've found online has been in this. Now, there are fringe things that go on. He doesn't talk about the Bill Kirkland gentleman. Other people do. So we'll leave that out for now, though. But he's really put together this research study number 8 that he did, as I said, February 12th, 2004. And it's pretty interesting. Let me get to a part here where he talks about early in the 50s, some astronomers were just looking out there, and they noticed that something was coming towards the Earth. And they didn't know what it was. They didn't know if it was a comet, or if they didn't know it was, space debris or whatever that may be. Well, what happened was eventually it took a high orbit around the equator, and it was an intelligent orbit. Mm. It wasn't just something that flew in and shot by us like so many comets that have gone by. Mm-hmm. No, they are circling the Earth around the equator. There were it was reported several of these ships. And then that is kind of the build-up to the meeting. So the astronomers saw it. Then in 1954, this, as I said, the astronomers saw it, 52, 53, 54. Supposedly, we were contacted, as I said, and that's why Eisenhower came to Palm Springs. So some of the things that have been speculated, though, is that he met with them in 54, and then there was a couple other meetings, quite possibly at Alamogordo, which is in New Mexico, and also on the East Coast. I forgot the name of the place. I'm so sorry. But so Valiant Thor, let me talk about that real quick, supposedly presented the president with a manifesto, if you will, that says, hey, we're going to help save you from the other aliens, but you can't develop nuclear weapons because it goes against the council's wishes. Well, the council he was referring to is the United Council of the 12, and he was supposedly the chairman, Valiant Thor was, of it. So he said, no, you can't do this. We'll help you get rid of the Greys if you discontinue your nuclear proliferations. Quit developing nuclear. You're going to kill the Earth, which resonates through the entire universe. Mm-hmm. And it has consequences all through the universes. So basically, from what I understand, Eisenhower said, you know what? I'll look through the information and I'll get back to you. Well, supposedly, according to Frank Strange's, he wrote a book called The Stranger in the Pentagon. It's about Valiant Thor and his meeting with the Eisenhower cabinets and things like that. He supposedly was on Earth for 3 years. Mm-hmm. And he could come and go as he wanted, apparently. Well, apparently a year after he met with Valiant Thor, Eisenhower returned the brief and said, I'm sorry, we can't accept these terms because it would devastate the economy of the United States and go against, prevent us from protecting ourselves from the earthly threats. Mm-hmm. Let's read into that Soviet Union at that time, because it was really the start of the Cold War, really getting into the Cold War. And nuclear proliferation was just everywhere. And it didn't go with the American agenda. Let me say the American government agenda. So they refused it. Hmm. So they went off, and supposedly they came from Venus, the interior of Venus, Nobody lives on the top of the world in Venus. They live under the world, underground, in cities and such like that. So hollow Earth theory, how's that? Hollow Venus theory. So, but later, within that year, supposedly Eisenhower had met with Greys and the Nordics and the reptilians, and apparently he came to an agreement, and there was a treaty signed, the Greada Treaty. That's Greada. I spelled it out phonetically so I could remember how to pronounce it. But anyhow, so apparently this treaty.
Why don't you hold that thought, and we're going to go to break here, and we'll be back in just a couple minutes with Don Longbeard and a continuation of his information. It's just absolutely fascinating. So don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you had a good break. Hope you got a drink. Hope you've stretched your legs, and now you're all ready to listen to another half hour of the show. I'm Brent Thomas, your host, and this is the Paranormal Portal, and thank you for being here, and we appreciate you guys all taking part. Thank you to those of you in the chat room and all the nice comments you've been making. I appreciate it. Keep them coming. I need more. No, I'm just kidding. It's just nice when you get positive feedback, and of course it feels good. So thank you guys for being here, and if you want to be a part of the experience, please again stop by the chat room. It's truthfrequencyradio.com/chat, and the call board is always open. So if you have any questions for our guest tonight, please call in. It's area code 213-233-3998. Again, 213-233-3998. So look forward to your call. If you want to call in and be a part of the show, we definitely welcome your involvement. So. But tonight we're joined by Don Longbeard, a friend of mine, personal friend of mine, and also really an emerging UFO researcher into the extraterrestrial phenomenon, and just the conversations I've had with Don I've known him for a while, a couple of years now, or a year anyway, but it's just like the conversations are always just so compelling and interesting, and I'm just thrilled that he was able to make it tonight and be a part of the show. So tonight we're talking mostly about the Eisenhower Accords and of course the legendary meeting and possible agreement between President Eisenhower and the United States government in collaboration with extraterrestrial intelligences. And Don, I can't help but wonder what would the purpose of them meeting with us? What would be the purpose of it, or what do you think they needed our permission to do?
Well, Brian, I don't think it's really a permission. I don't think they really were asking. I don't think they were asking. I think Valiant Thor was asking. Him and his crew was asking for, us to disarm and stop developing the nuclear capabilities that we were, because as I mentioned, they said that it does echo through the universes and does cause havoc. It's like butterfly effect. If a butterfly flaps its wings on the West Coast, is there a tsunami in Japan? So things like that. I think that's what they were referring to.
Oh, okay.
So I think that's what Valiant Thor and his group from the interior Venus, which every time I say that, I just want to cringe. But Valiant Thor supposedly was trying to help us escape, quite possibly, what could equivalent to, the enslaving of the human race by other aliens. And that's what brings us into the treaty that was, the Greada Treaty in 1954.
Uh-huh.
So it says that later in 1954, a race of large-nosed gray aliens, which was orbiting the Earth and landed at Holloman Air Force Base. Now, remember I said that there was some astronomers saw some thing coming at us, and that took an intelligent orbit around the equator.
Right.
This is supposedly one of those. These gray aliens supposedly came from the constellation of Orion, which is where Betelgeuse is. Now, if you want to call it Betelgeuse, Betelgeuse, I don't know. Just don't say it 3 times. I don't want to see that guy anymore. So they came down and they had a meeting with Eisenhower, and these are the people that the beings that supposedly we struck up the treaty with. And part of the reason they came down is because they said that their world was dying, and they were looking for compatible, living, and they wanted to experiment and talk with us and be friendly with us and things like this. Well, that, as it turns out, that's not what happens. But the agreement basically comes out to Eisenhower and his cabinet, or somebody on behalf of Eisenhower, struck this treaty with them, and it said basically, yes, you can abduct, certain amounts of people, and you can do your, medical testing, you can do your probes, you can do, as long as 1, they don't remember it, 2, they're returned unharmed, and 3, that they don't lose any time. They have no concept that they've been gone at all. And then, of course, we find the cattle mutilations and things like that. They weren't afforded, the good life afterwards, or even we weren't afforded good beef afterwards. So, so that was part of the agreement. And in exchange, they would help us with our technology. So they signed this treaty, and apparently it went good. It went good for a while, but what happened was, right about that same time is when Operation Majestic 12, MJ-12 is what it's referred to, and the aliens were supposed to report a total list of all the people that they've abducted and put back and this kind of thing. And eventually in 1971, 72, they figured out that, well, there's been a whole lot more people abducted and not returned, and people who were returned in less than prime condition. They are starting to remember these things. The Hills. Betty and it went right out of my head.
Betty Hill, yeah. Betty and her husband.
Yeah, and so they were the first ones that really struck up this thought that the Greys weren't doing what they said they would do.
Right. Because
now these horrifying, torturous things are being reported. Well, we're off the subject, though. The subject is the agreement. And the agreement basically was made in good faith by the Eisenhower administration, whoever that may be. Sure. But, of course, that's great. Sorry, the chat room, who posted that? John Teeter. He posted that. That's perfect. Thank you, sir. By the way, Area 51 is free. Now you need to look towards Area 52, which is just southwest of Salt Lake City, Utah. Of course, it's been there as long as Area 51. It's the Dugway Proving Grounds, just FYI. But the Accords, or the Greada Treaty, it just says that they wouldn't interfere in human, interactions. They would not interfere with what goes on the face of the earth. Unfortunately, as I said, they didn't do that. They could abduct humans on a limited and periodic basis for the purpose of medical examination and monitoring our development, with the stipulation that the humans would not be harmed, would be returned to the point of abduction, and would have no memory of the event, and that Majestic 12 will get a full list of everybody who had been abducted and examined. And they went back on that. They decided, somebody at some point told them, well, how can we stop you from doing that? It's like, why did you say that? How can we stop you? Well, you can do something. I don't know what, but we can figure it out. But, and so it just turned out to not be good. Now, what's happened since then, nobody really knows, but we always have these, and it's gotten worse since the 80s and 90s. Now, I don't know if that's, I don't know if that would be like, shared hallucination or, paranoia, whatever that may be. There have been sightings of aliens and UFOs coming more and more often. And a lot, believe it or not, there's a lot in North Dakota. There's a lot anywhere near nuclear testing grounds or nuclear silos. But as for that, who knows what's going on? Who knows how many the numbers that are being abducted and tested on and things like that, because they pretty much blew the whole thing away in the 70s, early 70s, probably right about when I was born. And that's when Area 51 became really, really pertinent to everybody's thing. Anybody who was listening, whether that be, Van Daniken, whether that be Stanton Freeman, whether that be Frank Strange's, whoever that is. And that even includes Mr. Art Bell and George Norrie and Kevin Smith. So, they were great investigators on these kinds of things. And it just kind of, it unbalances me trying to think of what is going on. Supposedly in 1977, there was the Dulce compound, where they raided what has been termed as an alien testing facility, super top secret, blah blah blah, and only 3 people survived that. They sent in troops to take it back. Actually, what happened was, I guess they were building or something, and that somebody had fallen through into these caverns that were built for the aliens, and then there was a big tada going around that. So, troops died trying to fend off these aliens that have ensconced themselves since the Greada Treaty.
Now, would you say is that the Phil Schneider reference in that?
Yeah,
is that right?
Exactly. Yeah, yep. Phil Schneider. Yeah, I had temporarily forgotten his name. Thank you for reminding me. Yeah. And he is one of 3 people who supposedly survived this firefight, and so, whether you listen to him or not, Phil Schneider, because there's also a little discrepancy between regarding Valiant Thor with him, because he's got a picture that doesn't match the picture that Frank Strange shows. Oh. They're 2 different pictures of 2 different gentlemen. So there's a little controversy around there. So we don't really know what Valiant Thor looks like. It throws some shadow on it. Mm-hmm. And so, so that is exactly what I was referring to.
No, I know that in the case of abductee reports, there's many times people become aware of whether it's through regression, hypnosis, or whatever, when they're re-experiencing this and recovering these memories. Many times people report waking up in what appears to be a craft or some kind of at least alien facility. They get up and are able to walk around, and they experience other beings in there, and some of them are clearly extraterrestrial, but then they end up meeting up with other people, but they aren't the same somehow. And there's something they explain about the eyes. The eyes are a little bigger, or they're, and so it begs the question, and I know that many people out there believe this, but what are your thoughts on them being part of their experimentation being to harvest DNA in order to create or to reestablish their own race, perhaps, due to infertility and other issues that may have arisen on their own development? I mean, is that a possibility in your eyes?
Well, of course it is. I mean, apparently, as I said, the alien Greys from Betelgeuse said that their world was dying. So it would make perfect sense that what they're looking for is maybe something in our genetics, our DNA, that can help them survive whatever that may be. Now, whether that be they go back to Betelgeuse and plant this seed, whether it be a DNA strand or just even a chromosome, and tweak it, that's definitely a possibility. But why would anybody go back to a dying planet? That's my first question. They're here. Why would they go back? Why don't they just proliferate here? Why don't they just, populate?
And that would be one of the things that I would say that they are doing. It's like they created a sub race of themselves that blends perfectly in with us and can be your neighbor, and you wouldn't know it. And perhaps that is the end game, that's they're just building population in order to make it home or take it over, or who knows. I don't pretend to know, but it can go from either like really scary to really cool, and I'm not sure which end we're going to end up on. But I hope that whatever it is, if this indeed is going on, that it's a peaceful thing. But I don't know. The whole cow mutilation, the whole experimentation. So many people have had these experiences, and like in the cases of the cow mutilations, I mean, some of the mundane explanations they give are just unbelievable. Like the cow might have got caught in a barbed wire fence and conveniently sliced panels of itself with laser precision off and managed to core out their own anus. And, it's just so bizarre.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, what exactly are they looking for? Are they looking at, what is it they're looking for? Are they looking for a new way? Are they, are they just trying to bolster until they can get, back to, it also begs the question though, is why haven't they left yet? Mm-hmm. So do they have the ability to leave at this time? Did something happen to their craft of whatever that may be? Or in some cases, there's a lot of people who believe that they're extra dimensional as opposed to extraterrestrial. Mm-hmm. So, did that wormhole or that gateway close? Is it on a circuit? Does it pop up every 100 years? What is that's stopping them from either coming or going? I was listening to a gentleman named Art Chapman today. I was listening to an old Kevin Smith show, and Art Chapman was on there, and he was talking about a few different things. And he does believe that eventually it'll get figured out. We'll finally have full disclosure, which I don't believe will actually happen. But maybe they'll start stepping us into this slowly, and we can start looking at, the realization that they have been here, and the disclosure that they are here, or they've been here, or whatever that may be. Art Chapman believes that it will end up in world peace, that we will eventually move to that spot where the coexistence with just humans alone, and then the peaceful acceptance of an alien race also. But I have to tell you, I've also, through my research and my readings, China claims that aliens have been living in the open with them for decades. They just flat out say that. And so it's just incredible.
Now, does that mean like they look like they're Chinese too, or are they? I don't know. I mean, that's a pretty fantastic claim. And if is that from the government themselves, and where can people look for that information? That's incredible. Well, because that is like disclosure, and that's what everybody's looking for, is some kind of grand omission by these, people in power to say, yeah, it's going on. It's been going on for a long time. And I know when Paul Hellyer, the former Canadian Minister of Defense, came out and said, yeah, they're here, and there's like 12 races of them here, and they come and go, and we've been dealing with this for a long time. I mean, like something like the Chinese government coming forward and saying that would be very powerful.
Well, it would be, but then let's examine the history of the Chinese government. You know, horrible things that they've done. The human rights violations, the basic human needs violations. So you ask, well, how did they come out, or what did they say? The answer is nobody knows. They just simply said it. And so, what are we to believe? In my opinion, what are we to believe that the communist Chinese have said that's true? What do we believe? And unfortunately, they don't say anything about what they look like, or how they act, or how they live in peace with the Chinese. Who knows? There's so much space in China that they could be living out nowhere, and where there's absolutely nobody, because Chinese have so much area and they cram everybody into just these small spots. And I wonder if they do that for eminent domain to aliens. Who knows? Maybe that's what they're doing, is they've got aliens that are there building up their armament, and they're giving them choice prime real estate in China. Who knows? But the Soviets, the Chinese, we really question their motives for everything, and we have to in a lot of ways, just because of history. Human history says, you got to question everything, and believe none of what you hear and half of what you see.
Yeah, exactly. And I know that there's a lot of movements out there, and the hard part about the UFO research to me is the, I don't know, the vast array of information that's out there that people are proclaiming, and I don't discount any of it, but it's like, for me, it's like, it's one thing to accept that there are flying saucers. I've seen it. I personally have witnessed this myself, and I've shared that story on the air many times, and it was a fantastic experience. And so it was really profound for me to move from, believing to knowing, and I just know that they're there. I know that they're here. I've seen it. I've witnessed it. But for me, that was as far as I was personally ready to take it on a personal level. But you hear all these other claims about what other people are experiencing, and that's like telepathy and I don't know. It's just, and it's profound, and it's amazing if it's true, but it's almost too much. It's like there's almost too much varied information out there that it's hard to make a differentiation, or to be comprehensive in what you can examine and what you can believe. I mean, do you understand what I'm saying, or am I just talking in circles?
No, you're right. When you're researching something specifically regarding aliens and extraterrestrials and EBs and spaceships and flying saucers, whatever you want to call it, there's so much information out there, and so you don't know what to believe. I mean, I've read stories regarding this Eisenhower thing, and I've looked at it and I went, you know what? I don't believe this guy. I just don't believe him. There's too many cute little anecdotal things that he says, and I just can't believe that that's true. Now, I'm half skeptic. I've got to tell you, I want to be Fox Mulder. I want to believe. However, I don't believe I've ever seen a spaceship. I know I've seen satellites, zip across, but those are fixed orbit. Those are things we've put there. It's not like Black Knight, that's up there been orbiting there. Tesla reports having seen Black Knight back in the early 1900s, 1903, 1905. So, but NASA says it's just the thermal blanket off a space shuttle that's been there since, the early, 20th century. So yeah, you start looking through these papers, and you start looking at these different conferences and people who spoke at conferences, and you're like, I believe that guy. I believe that guy. I just think that I feel that same way. Mm-hmm. But then I read this guy, or I see that guy speak at a conference, or I see his information online. You're like, just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't. And so you really have to be a skeptic when you're examining people, when you're really researching people, because, and this is something I bumped into when I was working as a corrections officer. You know, just because one person saw it one way doesn't mean the other person saw it the exact same way. Mm-hmm. You know, it's persistence of consciousness. No two stories are going to be alike. They'll have similarities, but they won't be alike. Mm-hmm. So I think that's what I have to stop reading the chat room. Thank you, Ken. A tall dude, mega, and the phylum descendant. Well, maybe. You know, that might be a show later, too, is the phylum and giants in the United States. Maybe I'll think about that one. But getting back on subject, I really think it's really hard to believe everything you read, and you really shouldn't. And, you know, you've really got to go at it with a grain of salt. So who knows? I mean...
And I think that's true for any of the paranormal. And I've always had that stance that it's really important for people that are working hard to give a field of study some validity. And this is whether it's Bigfoot research, whether it's, you know, paranormal research into the ghosts, into psychical researching, or, you know, UFO. It's so important to examine everything with the eyes of a skeptic, because it doesn't lend the field any credibility for, you know, 1,000 fantastical varied claims to come out, you know, and people will, you know, I experience aliens this way, and well, I experience them this way, and it's I don't want to say that I doubt those people, because I believe everybody has a unique experience and a varied experience, but in a field of study that, you know, so many people are looking towards disclosure, and I'll give you an example of where I personally have some problem, and I'll get it to you after the break. We're going to be heading into break here, so don't go away. We'll be coming back for the next hour of the Paranormal Portal, and we'll be right back after these messages. Don't go away. See you soon.
Is he?
Yeah, he is. Yes. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are into the second hour now of Saturday's Paranormal Portal Show. I'm really glad you're here, and thanks for being a part of it. And tonight we are discussing the aliens, the UFOs, aliens, and specifically we've been centering around the idea of did President Eisenhower indeed meet extraterrestrial aliens and come up with some kind of accord with them. And we are joined by my good friend Don Longbeard, who is an emerging researcher, just doing a fantastic job, and just very well learned on the subject. And he's one of those tenacious researchers. If he's got a question, he'll dig and dig and dig and dig like a Mickey Spillane detective till he finds an answer. And that's awesome. So whenever I have a question, if he doesn't know what I can count on the fact that because I asked it, he's going to find out. And so it's been a lot of fun. And I hope you guys are enjoying the show. But before the break, I did say, that there's an issue that I have. And I don't want to sound like in any way condescending or degrading to any of the schools of thought that are out there. I certainly... I don't know what the truth is for a lot of these things, but I can tell you that I think it's important to look at things through skeptical eyes, because it helps to make the field of study more credible. And I believe that firmly, and I believe that in as far as ghost investigating, any kind of research, Bigfoot, cryptids, whatever, and to take everything at face value, I don't think does anybody any doesn't lend any credibility to the field. And there are a lot of people that are devoting a lot of time and energy and resources into bringing these things to light and to helping people understand the truths that are out there. And so, for example, one of the things that personally I think could have been handle it better. And I'm not exactly sure that I know what I'm talking about. So if I'm really talking out of turn, you'll have to forgive me. But so the disclosure movement is a big thing in it, and they've done some wonderful work and brought some amazing testimony to the front from real credible witnesses and real established people, and it's brought the field, I believe, a lot of credibility, and it's brought a lot of people off the fence and made them into, either believers, or at least they believe it's possible. Excuse me. But when I heard about Stephen Greer taking people out into the desert and doing these meditation techniques in order to contact the aliens, and again, I'm paraphrasing, and I don't know, I don't know that I know what I'm talking about for sure, but if that is indeed the case, I think since the disclosure movement is right on the edge of what everybody understands as normal and reality and the fantastic, that to bring people so far into the fantastic right away is going to have a reverse effect on people. They're going to be like, oh yeah, I like Stephen Greer. Oh yeah, I heard about those people that came forward, these witnesses. Oh, what? He's going out in the desert and meditating to talk to aliens? Oh, never mind. It's just, it has the reverse effect when you bring people so far into a topic that most people, I don't believe, are ready for. And I'm not saying it's not possible. And I'm not saying that he doesn't actually, make contact, or whoever, whatever the case is. But my point is that some things are better left saved. and people need to be brought to these truths slowly and in methodical steps, because they're changing a whole paradigm, and you can't do that on boom, okay, I'm changed. I'm ready to accept everything you say now. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, Don?
Well, I think a lot of the time, a lot of the people in the community, like we were talking about, you see these people and you talk about, you listen to them, you hear them, you believe them or you don't believe them. You go into it with skeptic eyes. The real problem is that a lot of people just want to belong. So we start discrediting ourselves, and we start allowing people to discredit us. And it really, we disinformation ourselves. The government doesn't have to do it. All they have to do is throw out a cover story like, that was a weather balloon that blew up in Roswell, and yeah, it fell down when, but yet we found memory metal. We found, metal that cannot be bent with what seemed to be hieroglyphic, writings on it. Now, unfortunately, I wasn't around in 1947, 48, 49 when these incredible things were really happening, much less not, I wasn't in New Mexico either. I don't think I ever will be unless I'm like driving through to like get an ice cream cone or something. But I think a lot of it is that people who want to belong are saying things that are not credible. I'm sorry. It's true. We allow people to cast the shadow of doubt and discredit other people. Now, I want to verify. I want to clarify something, and that is, as I'm an amateur researcher, the difference between a researcher, a professional researcher, and an amateur researcher, in my opinion, is money. Because I don't have money to go around and shake these people's hands. I don't have money to interview them, to go and interview them. I'd love to get a hold of Stanton Friedman, and talk with them for an hour, find out what, but we know him. Let's talk about Art Campbell, who, has been out there, done research, there are credible researchers. I am standing on the shoulders of others, getting my information, and I'm reporting what I know, what I understand. And so I'm not going to try and say, well, I heard this guy, I heard that guy, and I believe this guy and I don't believe that guy, but I got to tell you, there's a lot of guys that I won't listen to, I just can't believe it. But I'm not going to say, oh yeah, so-and-so, don't believe that guy. That's a bunch of bull, because then that's when we really start throwing the shadow of doubt and the discreditations out there. So it's really hard not to step on our own toes in something that's been disavowed for so long, you know, and regarding that, that's not something I know about.
Okay.
Hey, Ken, Brent just pointed out that.
I was just pointing at Ken's post in the chat room. He said NASA SDS 107. What the hell happened there? I don't know if that was the Columbia one that allegedly was broke up in the atmosphere. And if you're referring to the YouTube video, that if it's the same space shuttle, I don't know if SDS is space shuttle or not, so I'm sorry. But I know that people are talking about a lot of times online about the space shuttle and Columbia or whatever disaster, and there's somebody did a real high-end looking video of this craft floating in orbit, and looks like it's been pummeled, and you know, it's a mess. And I don't know. The thing was, is I looked at historical images of the Columbia space shuttle when it was on the launch pad and stuff, and between that and what was portrayed on that video, there are differences, and some of it is in insignia positioning. There's some question as to whether that could possibly be the same craft, or if it's not just a really well done CGI. But clearly, what appears in that video is absolutely compelling. But when you look at the facts and the images of the space shuttle, there are differences, and you'll have to look into that yourself. But definitely, try to review when you see videos like that. Try to review it to, you know, with something like a space shuttle. There are hundreds and thousands of images of those things floating around, and you can definitely, you know, look at official photos of the space shuttle and compare it to what you see in the video. And if you find differences, then it's probably not true, but it's well done. And somebody whoever did that, if it indeed isn't real, and I'm skeptical of it myself, but if it's just a CGI job, somebody should be in Hollywood. They got some skills.
Well, he also said there, it says, no, Brent, UFOs were seen, then the shuttle blew up not long after in space. And we accept your apology for the caps there, Ken. So absolutely. You know, it's funny, though, because, you know, of course, that's one thing that I think that aliens would be interested in is how are we doing on our own space exploration? And did they, with this thought in mind, did they take it upon themselves to stop us from doing something? Or was it a government cover-up? You know, like the space landing, the moon landing was, you know, filmed in Hollywood. You know, so who knows? But unfortunately, either way you go, you know, either lives ended that day, or it was just a great blow to the American ego, which, you know, occasionally we have too much of. But however you look at it, you know, it wasn't a fun day because those people disappeared, whether they blew up in a shuttle or they just never returned to their families. They never did. However, if as you did say, Ken, that there were UFOs there, which I don't remember any information on, but that's something I'll have to research later, which we, as Brent said, we encourage you to do. But were they trying to stop us from doing something, or were they trying to stop something from happening? And they just happened to be there. Who knows? You know, but, you know, like I said, you know, believe none of what you read, or believe none of what you hear and half of what you see. And even the half that you see on the internet, you can't believe because of, you know, simple things, you know, CGI, you know, it's hard to tell. It just really is. As a matter of fact, speaking of hard to tell, they're talking about, we were talking about Eisenhower, and there was a video that was supposedly released. Eisenhower sent two gentlemen to Area 51 to research because it was reported that he felt that he had lost control of that particular situation. And he sent two representatives to check on what they were doing in Area 51. And they, he said, if they don't come back and give me a full report, the military will invade Area 51 and it will be taken over.
The 10th mountain, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, you know, so, you know, the video that was supposedly released was of an alien that was that we had in captivity since Roswell, and that was that'd be incredible. Now, the thing is, though, is even if it was done back then, it was either an incredibly done piece of CGI, or it was real, but nobody can tell. It's been looked at, just like the Patterson Gimlin footage of Bigfoot. There's just no way to tell. They don't know if that was a bear that just happened to be walking upright, or if it was indeed Bigfoot. However, me and Brent, being who we are, we choose to believe that there is something out there, and I want more proof, though. That's my problem, is I want more proof. But getting back to Eisenhower real quick, in 1955, apparently he went back out to meet with the Valiant Thor crew, and basically told him in no uncertain terms that we can't accept this, and that they had made an agreement with what they called the alien greys, and that was what we've been talking about. So, did that totally discourage Valiant Thor or others from coming and helping us out of the crisis that we've put ourselves into, or at least reportedly put ourselves into with these alien greys? But what I'd like to point everybody back to is Eisenhower's farewell speech about, keep your eye on the industrial complex, the military industrial complex. Things aren't working the way that they're supposed to. And he warned us of that. Douglas MacArthur, General MacArthur, also said, he was talking about, in one of his speeches, he was saying, we're using words like the cosmic, it went right out of my head. Oh, I can't remember. But he was warning us that he would, in not so many words, he was warning us that there are powers that we are dealing with that are beyond this earth. And I thoroughly, now that I've forgotten what he said, look it up. There are video files of that MacArthur speech, and the words that he was using will ring true with you, and it'll just, it's a foreshadowing. Was he foreshadowing? Was Eisenhower foreshadowing when he was talking about the military complex? We've been being warned. Has anybody actually been listening? Well, who knows? Oh, good old Snopes. Did General MacArthur claim in a 1955 speech the next war would be an interplanetary one? Not in so many words. The next war will be an interplanetary war. The nations of the earth must someday make common front against attack by people from other planets. Okay, that's what was claimed. That's not what he said. Unfortunately, that's where the paranoids took it. Quoted, sorry, we're reading Snopes, so we're going to take that with a grain of salt too. Hey, Brent, go ahead if you would, because I'm missing it if you want to.
No, it's fine. I'm just looking at this as well to try to see what MacArthur says according to Snopes. Let's see. He quoted Einstein's reply. He quoted, according to Laurel, the only comments MacArthur made about the next war were that he had no idea what form it would take. And he quoted Einstein's reply when asked what weapons would be used in the Third World War, that he did not know what weapons would be used in the Third World War, but that the fourth global conflict would be fought with sticks and stones.
Yeah, that's a little... I think that's more pointed towards post-apocalyptic nuclear kind of stuff. But he did say he was talking about cosmic effect and things like that. So absolutely look it up and listen. As I said, there have been a lot of people that have been trying to warn us of things through different speeches, and they use these cryptic words and cryptic phrases. and so I think we've been being warned, whether it be considered disclosure or not. Now, that depends on your definition of disclosure. Oh, that is an interesting picture there.
That is from that video that I was talking about. Ken, thank you for posting that. And if you visit the TFR chat room, you'll see an image regarding the STS disaster, and it looks like it's in orbit. It's not in reentry. It's in orbit, but it's really beat to hell. And again, if it's legitimate, it's absolutely terrifying. But if it's not legitimate, then whoever did it should be in Hollywood and not making hoaxes on the internet.
Yeah. And this is part of the reason we can't believe everything we hear, because who knows, like we said, if that is a hoax, that guy needs to be designing the next Matrix movie, who knows, or the next Apollo 18 mission, whatever that may be. With just everything that's been said tonight, just about the Greada Treaty and the mutilations and the abductions, it like I said, we seem to cast doubt on ourselves. We seem to discredit ourselves. We seem to disinform ourselves through these actions. And I think a lot of the unfounded, if you will, claims, some of the things that people have said, it just really, it's really disturbing what could be happening. So, I leave you to make your own decisions and informed opinions, hypothesis, whatever that may be. But, that's what I have for you tonight.
Oh, you're not done yet, mister. You got another half hour to go.
Well, okay.
But, we were talking during the break, and I was just like, we had discussed that there's a lot of different reports about the whole Eisenhower meetings and stuff. And I did ask, I said, Don, do you think it really happened?
Yeah.
And you had talked about why you believed it had. And could you share that?
Well, I just simply believe it had, because I believe there's got to be something else out there. And, and there's been more than one, I haven't been using any substantiating or circumstantial evidence. Well, there was a pilot that said, yes, I flew Eisenhower to these places. There was Phil Schneider that we've already talked about that has also talked about Eisenhower and how he made these agreements and set aside these places to inhabit, whatever that may be. And then the 1977 or 79 incident in Dulce. So I believe that there is an alien life form, or aliens at least talking to us. Part of what I have a problem with, though, is that supposedly, and this is something I forgot to mention, supposedly they had been communicating telepathically. Well, how? How do they know who to talk to? Okay, well, when we sent up we've been broadcasting that radio wave. What was it? On Voyager? It was on Voyager. We sent it out on Voyager in like 1971. But that was 1971. That wasn't 1954. Was Tesla? Because Tesla said he saw Black Knight far before NASA was ever developed or brought to light. Then, of course, like you said, Jefferson. So within modern times, there have been many, many, many occasions of many, many men of stature reporting things like this. Back in the Old West, they didn't call them flying saucers. They didn't call them UFOs. They called them airships. So that might be some of the lost lingo that we should be looking for, as opposed to, ancient aliens or, UFOs in the Old West. No, look up airships. Airships. That's what they used to call them.
And that's true for pretty much every field of study in the paranormal. And I know for instance, like for the longest time, people thought that the regular people that just the layman thought Bigfoot is in the Pacific Northwest. That's where Bigfoot is, because that's where the shows that talk about Bigfoot talked about it. That's where the name Bigfoot was coined, and it became just a regional kind of issue. But through the evolution and through the research that I've done into the Bigfoot phenomenon, you start running across these different names. And you're right, it's all about terminology. And that in the South, they've been calling them boogers, wood boogers, woolly boogers, the
Itan.
Yeah, Itan. There's so many different names that these creatures have been known by. There's the grassman in Ohio, and wild men. There's 1800s reports of these wild men that people were encountering in the wilderness, and cavemen, and so it wasn't until, at least for me, it wasn't until more recently that all this was put together and people started acknowledging, wait, these are the same creature. They're just, the stories never really corroborated for a long time because people just had these different terms for what was going on, and they were dismissed as folklore, as wives' tales, as legends. And it wasn't until serious research began and in other areas that people are like, wait, we're finding footprints, we're finding tree structures, we're finding breaks, we're finding, encounters people are having are matching the similar descriptions of these encounters from the Pacific Northwest. This is not just a regional problem. This is, or phenomenon. I shouldn't say problem, because I certainly don't believe that it's a problem. But yeah, it's definitely the case. And I even wonder, what other names and did in the case of UFOs, and I know this has been gone over many times when people are talking about the Nephilim, however you pronounce it. Are they actually what people understood? Were they misunderstood as, as these godlike creatures? Were the gods that people encountered, like the Sumerians and their cuneiform tablets recorded about the Anunnaki and such? I mean, were these extraterrestrial beings, and the Indian culture and the Vimanas, the flying Vimanas, these warships that did battle in the skies, and these legends are all over, but they were attributed to more godlike forces. But now that I think for the first time in history, we have the ability to share information and openly and without needing for it to pass through official channels. And so that's what's really helped, I think, move these researches along, is that people can share ideas, or can compare notes on a global scale. And now that doorway is opened, I think we're going to be so much closer to disclosure. But we're heading to our last half-hour break, and we will continue this discussion for the last half hour of our show on the Paranormal Portal. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the last half hour of our show for the night, and the final show for this week. And happy April Fool's Day, I guess. I didn't think of a good joke or anything. I'm sorry about that. I just realized it was April Fool's. Now, I mean, I saw, of course, everybody posting on Facebook and stuff. I saw that it was happening. It's just, I don't know. I'm a little late to the game. I was busy with computers and stuff today, rebuilding a computer and trying to set up a new studio computer, but I didn't quite get it all figured out yet. So I got to work on that as well. Probably maybe tomorrow, but yeah, I just didn't think of anything clever. I'm sorry about that, guys. But here we are in the last half hour, and we've been discussing our UFO phenomenon, especially the Eisenhower Accords with the the alleged agreement between our government in the United States and the extraterrestrials to give them, permission or for their testing or genetic research, or to, try to live peacefully with us, or whatever reason they might be here. I know there was a famous, not famous, but there was a movie in the recent history, and I brought this up one other time on the show, and it's so funny because Hollywood, it just makes me laugh. It's in this movie, there's an invasion. I think it's Invasion LA or whatever is that the newer one, and the news is playing on, and the people are all bummed out and seeing these beings landing and basically planting themselves in the ocean and starting to suck the oceans, and they're talking about why are they here? Why are these things here? What do they need? And one of their experts on the newscast, and this is just a movie, but I just thought it was hilarious. One of the experts on the newscast is like, well, they're here for our water. And the other person on the newscast was like, well, I thought there's water in space. Yes, but it's not in its liquid form as it exists here on the Earth. And it's like, so these things can travel hundreds of light years or thousands of light years. They can't figure out how to melt an ice cube. What the hell? I don't know. It was just so damn funny. I nearly fell off my chair. So that was the explanation they gave on the movie, because they had to have an explanation for why these things are here. But I don't think it's quite that simple. I think that they have many other agendas, and I think it would probably depend on which race of being it is. And I know that, as I was saying, Paul Hellyer, the retired Canadian Minister of Defense, which is, about as credible as a witness and proponent as you could ask for to come forward, but he claims there's I think 12 different races that are here and they're coming and going at will, and I don't, I don't know. It's just a fantastic thing, and maybe they've always been here, and it kind of makes me think about the alien astronauts and the fact that, you look at Pumapunku, you look at ancient Egyptian stoneworking, and they were allegedly working with bronze chisels, but they could mill and machine granite with laser-like precision, and it's just how did they manage to do that? And we would still be struggling, and even in today's technological advancement, to duplicate those works on the scale that they did and make these hundreds of tons boulders fit like puzzle pieces. They cut them and molded them and shaped them, and it's just the craftsmanship is just phenomenal. And so even to the idea that I was just reading something on Facebook today, and I was going to link it to the Paranormal Portal page about some archaeologist in the 80s, I think, found this old footprint. And it was basically when the stone was still soft. And so it could be 200 and some million years old, but it's clearly a footprint like you or I would leave in mud. And it's, hardened now into stone. And apparently they found fossilized or impressions of other animals in the area too, like birds, which weren't supposed to exist then either. So maybe they've always been here. Maybe they've always been coming and going, and we're just finally emerging, to the point that we can understand that, and perhaps they've always been here keeping an eye on things, and it sounds like in the distant past they used to at least help us out, and they really helped shape maybe the civilizations that became, that emerged through our world. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, Don?
Well, I wouldn't discredit or say anything against being star-seeded, if that's what you want to say. Maybe. What did I watch the other night? It was Prometheus, the precursor to the Alien movies, and how that all started. So if you want to think that, and Alex Jones, he did a whole thing about alien being star-seeded, the new movie that's coming out is going to explain, a few things about what happened and how we were seated and things like that. You'd have to see that. Alex Jones has a persona all his own. He's just I like watching him. I take what he says with a grain of salt. But there are things that he says that I'll listen, but there have been anyhow, but now we're getting on to Alex Jones. The point is that it wouldn't surprise me if we were helped along. I mean, because if you look, the Sphinx shows water wear. Well, when was the last time there was a serious deluge in Egypt and the Ice Age? So if there's that kind of, wear and tear on erosion on the Sphinx, that's been carbon dated back to like 25,000 years.
Wow.
So, or at least speculated to 25,000 years. Now, with that being said, I just read an article. It was someplace in Indonesia, and unfortunately, I filed it away in my I'll get to it later file. But they found a pyramid that had been, they just thought it was a small pyramid at first, and then somebody went and started doing core digs, started pulling up cores. They carbon dated it back, it's larger than they originally thought. They carbon dated the dirt as far back as 25,000 years. So you've really got to wonder, where are these megalithic structures? How did we come to understand how to build these megalithic structures so far back in history? Whether you believe it was, Khufu back in, 3000, 3000 BC, whatever that may be. But if you think about it, though, 3,000 years ago was only 1,000 years before, Christ. Let's say Christ, okay? Because that's the standard calendar measurement. So, so you got to think of that too. 3,000 years ago was ancient Egypt, but 25,000 years ago was what? What was that? If they can show, was it Robert Bauval or Graham Hancock? I read, or not Hancock. Yes, Hancock. Hancock wrote Fingerprints of the Gods. Robert Bauval wrote the Orion Mysteries. I believe that's correct. I may be wrong. Don't get on me. I'm an amateur, remember. All right. So, but anyhow, they wrote in there that the Sphinx was 25,000 years old because of the erosion damage to it. There hasn't been a deluge in that area for thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years. Yeah, the Nile used to be green, fertile land, but not the kind of erosion that'll happen within 3,000 years. It just isn't going to happen. So yeah, there's got to be something that showed us something. Atlantis. Yeah, Atlantis. I believe Atlantis was real because 25,000 years ago, our sea levels were lower because the ice caps were bigger. So things that were at zero level 25,000 years ago could be 1.5 miles underwater now. So if Atlantis was an island and it was stuck at zero sea level, the ice caps melt. Well, guess what? It's flooded now. It's underwater. So yeah, absolutely. And plus, I like reading Plato. He wrote about Atlantis extensively. So that's great. But yeah, where did we develop? How did we develop as a civilization if we came from what Darwin says, the chimpanzees? Who knows? I don't believe it. I believe, that there was something missing or something twisted in our DNA that developed us this way instead of that way, to take us away from that. As a matter of fact, when they're talking about finding the missing link isn't in our gene line. It's in a monkey's gene line, not in human DNA. They're not going to find a missing link because it's not there. Because if you believe that we were star-seeded, we were engineered from that, but that's not our genetic line. Our genetic line is greater than that.
And there's a fantastic video out there. I would encourage any of you who are interested in learning more about that, or at least hearing a very expert opinion on on the specifics of the whole genetic issue and many others. And it's by a gentleman named Lloyd Pye, who's passed away. But he did a video that's on YouTube, and it's called "Everything You Know Is Wrong." And he's also very well known for his work on the elongated skulls that they found in Central America as well. But he was really working on bringing those to light, and the fact that the cranial size was way too big to have ever been just elongated techniques used by ancient peoples, and so clearly there seems to be a record of some sort of these beings living alongside of people in our distant past. And I don't know, there's a lot of shady speculation around his demise, but let's just say his cancer seemed to come out of nowhere, and he didn't live very long after that. But is there a movement to suppress the truth even on that level? Yeah, I mean, clearly there's enough going on that it definitely begs the question.
You mentioned, is there, the shady ideas and how people shut people down. That's what brought this up. When after Eisenhower supposedly met with the aliens back in 1954, 55, they instituted the Espionage Act. And part of what the Espionage Act says is that if you open your mouth, you will get 10 years in prison and a $10,000 fine. Well, nowadays, if you write a bad check, you get 25 years in prison and a $100,000 fine. But back in 1954, $10,000 was a lot. And of course, you don't want to go to prison for any amount of time. So that's what shut up a lot of people. Oh, nice elongated skulls. Thank you, John Titter. That's a great picture, actually. Reminds me of the giants that I was just alluded to a while ago. But it was said that this penalty that was put on people who talked was just draconian, and this, that, and the other thing. But then again, like you said, that sickness came on suddenly, and it just totally wiped him out within X amount of time, in a very very short time. There have been a lot of people who have talked about UFOs and what they've read in top secret memos that they had read as part of their job. And these people are, they're up in their 70s, 80s, 90s now, and now they're talking about it because what have they got to worry about? They feel that they've only got a few more years left on the face of the earth, or whatever that may be. However, there are people who have talked that were younger, 40s, 50s, that all of a sudden die of a heart attack. They fell off the side of their boat. They were drunk. They were drinking too much. They fell off the side of the boat. So yeah, it really discourages people from talking and having a truthful conversation. Why would anybody come forward? Why would anybody have a common dialect when it comes to that? What's the advantages? Well, if you don't say something and you feel you need to answer only to yourself and how you feel about it later. It's like, it's like lying. Eventually you're either going to lie or you're not going to lie. If you lie, you may or may not be eaten by guilt. But if you don't lie, you have nothing on your conscience to worry about. However, in our state of society, we have to worry about the government saying it's not okay to do that, and we're going to do this because of it. It's like flexing your Fourth Amendment right of free travel, as an example. But anyhow, but just because you can doesn't mean you should. And so with that in mind, be sensitive to other people. If they just tell you they don't want to hear it, well, then don't tell them. There's just so many things that fly through my head. My brain goes in 40 million different ways because as I'm saying this, I'm thinking of something that was said in the Bible. Never mind, we're not going to talk about it. I just quickly draw these connections to other things I read. And the Bible always pops up. It's one of my favorite histories. So you have to be careful what you say to protect yourself and your family. If at some point it becomes too much to bear, you have your own morals to answer to. And if you say something you don't, you're the one's going to have to live with it. And like we were talking about, reprisal from whatever that may be, whether it be a law or whatever, that's something that you're going to have to risk.
And I think that's the other thing that Lloyd Pye was saying was the whole idea of evolution, and he has a brilliant correlation to the Sasquatch in there as well, and that's all I'll say. But it's over an hour long, but it's some of the greatest information I've ever heard compressed into an hour ever. But he focuses on the whole chromosome issue, between the discrepancy between the ape DNA, or primate DNA, and our DNA. And I think it's the 48th and 47th or 48th chromosome. Somewhere a pair of chromosomes is somehow miraculously fused in our genetics, but it's not that way in the primates, in the apes, the great apes. And so that's the big question, is like, what happened in the course of this normal genetic development that could cause those chromosomes to fuse? And it's just unprecedented, and that's the question that geneticists can't answer. Nobody can answer, is how could that naturally have happened? And clearly, at least with our understanding now, or up to that point, there is no explaining it. It just is some strange phenomenon that occurred, and it bears the marks of genetic engineering, is what he says. And so, check it out again. It's Lloyd Pye. Everything You Know Is Wrong, and it's one of those videos that you'll walk away from it at least with an appreciation for the information he offers, and whether or not you buy into it, of course, is up to you. But again, I don't know. I never knew the guy. I don't have any clue, but I know that he worked very hard to bring things to light, and ended up, giving his life for it. So whether through natural causes or not, or nefarious, who knows? But yeah, there's a lot of questions there in any case. But that is the way things go in people that are trying to raise consciousness. I think the encouraging thing, though, is that some governments around the world have gone disclosure. They've gone totally open their books on it, according to what I understand. And some great information has been gleaned, and some reports have been, that had not seen the light of day prior to that had come to the surface. And so people are able to see what a widespread phenomenon this is with, encounters and such. And we've certainly read about them on the show, where, people are encountering these strange creatures, and more so than just the basic descriptions I've heard through the disclosure movement. But there's apparently there's a lot more of them out there, because some of the stuff people are reporting is just defies explanation. It's like somebody, they were in their car, and they saw that robot one that we talked about, and that was very strange. So I mean, there's no shortage to the amount of experiences people are having. And Don, I know you said you've never seen one, and so that you still tend to have a skeptical view. But after the show, if the sky is visible, we'll take out those night vision binoculars, and I want to show you the night sky. And it's absolutely incredible. And I got to look on my trusty phone here to see what the weather's like. It says it's partly cloudy, so 50, yeah. We should be able to see something. So
50, we'll be in our flip-flops and our shorts.
I'm going to get my Speedo out. Hold on.
Oh, goodness.
It's about to get really cryptic up here. I don't wear a Speedo. What are you, crazy? Nobody wears those things except in Europe, I think.
The Governator.
The Governator. Yeah, so. But I'm going to take Don out there, and I'm going to show him our stars that he's never seen before, because they're red. Lots of them are red. And maybe he'll see his first Brent Simpson. It's Homer. My name is Homer. No Speedos. Stacy, come on. I can kill a Speedo, let me tell you.
Yeah, it's kill as in like destroy them.
How do I mute Don's mic? Hold on. Your interview's over, Don.
Get out of here.
Time to go. No, I don't wear weird things like that. I'm a very conservative, personally conservative person. I don't know. I'm maybe not conservative is the right word, but I'm very, very shy. So you can tell, right? Don starts laughing. Don, you're killing me here, dude. You're just totally
dying on my own show.
This is my show, Don. Go get your own show, and then you can tear me down. Oh, I don't get paid enough for this, ladies and gentlemen. I don't need this kind of abuse on the radio. Oh, whatever. No, I know nobody should be ever wearing a Speedo. It's yeah, I would, Lewis, but somebody's already doing that voice, and they get paid a lot more than I do. But I would love to do voiceovers for The Simpsons. That would be hilarious. And there's some great pictures in the chat room too of some giants and such, and it, you know, maybe they could be of extraterrestrial origin as well. I know that's, you know, like you were saying, Don, the Nephilim and stuff would be another great show, the Nephilim and the giant connections. And yeah, we could definitely get into it. I've never done a show on that before, but it's certainly something we could do. So thank you guys. Thank you guys in the chat room. You've made me laugh. This is why I endorse the chat room so much. It's just such a fun time. These people are just crazy, and I love them. And they put up with me, and they listen to my show. Do what next Friday, Lewis? What are you doing? Oh, the Nephilim show? No, I don't know. I don't know. That would be one of those shows that I would have to do a lot of homework on too, because it's a topic that I understand a little bit about, but I don't have that. I don't have a deep understanding of it. How's your knowledge base on that?
Well, you know, once again, I go back to the Bible because the Nephilim may have a biblical connection to the fallen angels. So that's, you know, there you go.
And I don't ever want anybody to get the opinion that for some reason the Bible's not allowed on the show. I'm perfectly fine with people discussing whatever religion they want to. I just, you know, I don't want ever get into religion bashing and stuff. Everybody's entitled to their own beliefs, but if we, you know, do a show on the Nephilim, it would be kind of important to cover the biblical aspect of that. So I think it would be great. So if you know, Don, if your schedule frees up, or if you have another night that you'd like to come back and do that, I'd be happy to have you. And I really appreciate you being here tonight. Thanks a lot for coming on the show.
Yeah, actually, it's been a lot more fun than I expected it to be. Let me admit to my virginity in this particular area. This is the first time I've ever done a podcast. So and Brent can attest to, every time somebody gets a camera out and wants to videotape me, I turn into a stuttering, blubbering nutcase. So, you know, it's easing into it a little bit. But yeah, I think a show of the Nephilim would be great. You know, that would be, you know, there's a lot of interest in it. As a matter of fact, there was a show on the History Channel, I believe it was, or Discover, called Finding the Giants, I believe it was. And it was I think they were brothers, and they were both stonemasons. But they were interested in what could be, you know, the connections of the giants now. So there's a lot of information out there. Maybe the Nephilim are from Mars. I hope not, because if people from Venus look like us, I don't want to know what we might have. You know, that might be, you know, thinking about it, that might be the DNA splicing that we were talking about earlier, about maybe that's what the aliens need. Who knows?
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. We are about out of time for tonight. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of the show. And I love you all. I hope you have a great week. I'm going to miss you. It's always a hard stretch for me to go through for, you know, several days without talking to you. But just think of me every once in a while, if you would, please. And not in a Speedo, though. Don't imagine me in a Speedo.
Please don't do that.
Don, you're done. Go home. No, I'm just kidding. All right, love you guys. Be good to each other, and we'll see you next Friday for the next show of the Paranormal Portal. You guys take care, and we'll talk to you soon.